Flashing red and blue lights painted streaks across my pristine lawn as 3 police cruisers boxed in my driveway. Officers questioned my impeccably dressed guests for international ambassadors who, despite the growing chaos, maintained a calm and dignified presence. Meanwhile, Karen Whitfield, the HOA president, stood smugly on the sidewalk with her arms folded, practically glowing with self-righteous triumph. She clearly believed she'd finally caught me violating some hidden, arcane neighborhood clause. Then came the moment everything turned. The lead officer's radio crackled, and a calm voice cut through the tension. Be advised, those individuals are diplomatic guests, verified and cleared by the State Department. Repeat, they have full diplomatic clearance. Karen's expression melted instantly, crumbling like a sandcastle hit by a rogue wave. Let me take you back. My name is Marcus Chin. I've lived in the Willowbrook Estate neighborhood in Riverside, Connecticut, for 5 years. It's the kind of place where every home looks like it belongs on a calendar. White columns, freshly trimmed hedges, and rules thicker than a law textbook. As a cultural liaison for an international nonprofit, I occasionally host international delegations. This weekend, I had the honor of welcoming 4 ambassadors participating in a grassroots diplomacy initiative. They arrived Friday in sleek, black SUVs. First to step out was Ambassador Kofi Mensah from Ghana, wrapped in a regal Kent cloth over a tailored suit. Behind him came Ambassador Elena Volkov of Estonia, Carlos Mendoza of Peru, and Rashid al-Rashid of Jordan, each wearing a dignified blend of national and formal attire. Over 3 days, they would engage with local schools, community leaders, and attend a special dinner at my home. But of course, Karen couldn't let that slide. She's ruled the HOA for 3 years, turning the neighborhood into a miniature dictatorship. Last month, she fined the Johnsons $200 over a gnome being too tall. Before that, she threatened Mrs. Rodriguez over a wind chime that allegedly violated the noise policy. Her house, 2 doors down from mine, is identical, except hers bristles with more surveillance cameras than a military base. Saturday morning began quietly. We sipped coffee on the deck, discussing the upcoming school visits. But I caught movement in Karen's window. By 10:30, she was parading her poodle by my house for the 3rd time, her phone angled suspiciously, likely snapping photos. Ambassador Mensah chuckled and asked if paparazzi were common in suburban Connecticut. I waved it off as our overly enthusiastic HOA president. At noon, Karen stood at the property line with a clipboard, scribbling furiously. When Ambassador al-Rashid stepped onto the porch in his traditional thobe, she practically bolted back home. 20 minutes later, an HOA violation email pinged my phone. Excessive vehicles in driveway. Operating a commercial business on residential property. Unauthorized gathering exceeding occupancy limits. I forwarded it to my attorney friend who confirmed what I already knew. None of it held water. But Karen wasn't finished. Around 2 p.m., while the ambassadors reviewed their presentation inside, I heard her on the phone in her yard, voice loud and clear. Yes, officer. Foreign men coming and going. Black SUVs. Speaking unknown languages. Wearing strange outfits. Could be human trafficking. Or worse. A chill ran through me. She was calling the police on diplomatic visitors. I notified the ambassadors immediately. Volkov calmly pulled out her diplomatic ID and suggested the others do the same. Mendoza chuckled, calling it great material for a memoir. Their calmness only made my blood boil more. 15 minutes later, 2 police cars arrived. I met the officers at the door and explained. They were courteous but said the call had been escalated to a 911 emergency, suggesting immediate danger. They needed to check IDs. The ambassadors complied smoothly, offering passports, diplomatic papers, and State Department clearance letters. Then Karen crossed the line. She stormed over, yelling, "They don't belong here. Look at them. They're hiding something. I demand you search their vehicles and verify those papers. I know fake documents when I see them." Sergeant Williams tried to de-escalate, but she wasn't done. "I've been HOA president 3 years. I know every resident. These men are dangerous." He excused himself to make a call, scanning the documents. His expression shifted. He made 2 more calls, each one stiffening his posture. When he returned, his tone could have frozen lava. "Ma'am," he said, "these individuals are official diplomatic envoys under U.S. protection. You just filed a false emergency report. That could be a federal offense." Karen turned every shade imaginable. "That can't be. They're lying. Marcus probably hired actors." But Sergeant Williams was already on the radio, mentioning State Department security. The other officers began taking statements, but now their questions were for Karen. Within half an hour, our quiet cul-de-sac transformed into a diplomatic crisis zone. 2 more cruisers pulled up, then an unmarked federal vehicle. Karen tried to retreat inside, but Sergeant Williams blocked her path. "You need to stay for questioning." The ambassadors, still calm, offered their own statements, highlighting their concern over what appeared to be a case of profiling and misinformation. Karen had tried to weaponize fear and rules, but instead, she exposed herself. Red and blue lights flashed across the front lawn, painting shadows on the hedges as police cruisers blocked the driveway. Officers spoke calmly to my distinguished guests, who stood composed in their tailored suits, unshaken by the commotion. Karen Whitfield, the ever-watchful HOA president, stood with her arms crossed and that familiar, smug grin, convinced she had finally caught me violating some trivial rule. But that smugness evaporated when Special Agent Sarah Mitchell from the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service arrived. In her early 40s, with the stern demeanor of someone who didn't flinch at chaos, she took command with ease. After reviewing witness statements and speaking with the ambassadors, she turned toward Karen with measured authority. "Mrs. Whitfield," Agent Mitchell said, "do you understand that filing a false police report is a crime? And that when diplomatic personnel are involved, it becomes a federal matter?" Karen's confidence cracked. "I didn't know they were ambassadors. They looked suspicious. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." Agent Mitchell remained composed. "According to multiple witness statements, you made several discriminatory remarks about their appearance and nationality. You continued making accusations even after being informed of their diplomatic status. This goes far beyond a misunderstanding." The next hour blurred into a whirlwind of statements, phone calls, and official protocols. The ambassadors, professionals to their core, stayed gracious. Ambassador Al-Rashid even extended a business card to Karen and suggested she visit Jordan to broaden her perspective. She held the card like it might combust in her fingers. Meanwhile, I handed Agent Mitchell a thick folder of emails and documentation, a history of Karen's harassment and discriminatory behavior toward other neighbors. As police vehicles eventually departed, the real fallout was just beginning. Several neighbors had recorded everything, and videos had already hit the community Facebook group. Comments poured in, none kind to Karen. Years of quiet resentment were erupting into loud vindication. By evening, news vans lined the street. HOA president calls police on visiting ambassadors was a headline too irresistible to ignore. Sunday morning brought the first aftershocks. An emergency HOA board meeting was called after a flurry of angry emails from residents. Karen tried to defend herself, insisting she was just being cautious. But board member Janet Torres shut that down fast. "You created an international incident," Janet snapped. "The mayor's office called me. The State Department contacted our HOA's legal counsel. You've exposed us to massive liability." The vote was swift and unanimous. Karen was removed as president immediately. The consequences kept rolling. On Monday, her employer, Preston Financial Services, released a public statement distancing itself from her actions. By lunchtime, she was placed on administrative leave pending an internal review of her conduct. Particularly ironic, considering the company had just launched a major diversity initiative. Then came the legal implications. While the State Department chose not to pursue criminal charges, it referred the case to the Department of Justice for potential civil rights violations. Karen received formal notice that she was under investigation for filing a false report with discriminatory intent. The potential fines began at $10,000. Each of the 4 ambassadors filed formal diplomatic complaints, creating a permanent record that would follow Karen for the rest of her life. On Wednesday afternoon, Just before their departure, the ambassadors made an unexpected visit. Each brought a gift from their home country and a letter of appreciation. Ambassador Mensa presented a hand-woven Kent cloth. Ambassador Valov gifted a polished piece of Baltic amber. Ambassador Mendoza offered a leather-bound collection of Peruvian poetry. Ambassador Al-Rashid brought an ornate tea set. But the most humbling gift was an official letter from the State Department thanking me for my contribution to international relations and inviting me to participate in future cultural exchange programs. Locally, Karen's fall continued. The City Council passed a resolution condemning her actions and requiring cultural sensitivity training for all HOA board members. 3 neighbors filed formal complaints, revealing a disturbing pattern of past harassment. Ironically, the same security cameras Karen used to monitor others now served as evidence against her. By Friday, the final blow landed. Karen was served with a civil lawsuit, filed jointly by the diplomatic missions, seeking $100,000 in damages plus legal fees. Her unpaid role as HOA president wouldn't cover any of it. She would either have to dip into her retirement fund or sell her home, the very home she once ruled from like a self-appointed queen. I was in my home office when I heard the commotion outside. Karen stood on her driveway, lawsuit in hand, yelling incoherently to no one in particular. "This isn't fair. I was protecting the neighborhood. I didn't do anything wrong." Her toy poodle barked in confused sympathy, but even the dog seemed unsure whether to stand with her. It was over. The queen of Willowbrook Estates had fallen, and in her place stood a bitter figure holding legal papers and clinging to fading delusions of moral authority. That evening, I sat on my back deck sipping tea from the elegant set Ambassador Al-Rashid had gifted. The air felt lighter, freer. Neighbors came by to apologize for not standing up sooner. Mrs. Rodriguez hung new wind chimes that chimed defiantly in the breeze. The Johnsons added a couple of oversized garden gnomes, just enough to break one of Karen's former HOA guidelines. The quiet revolution had succeeded. By the end of the week, the full tally of Karen's downfall was staggering. Removed from the HOA board she'd ruled for 3 years. Suspended indefinitely from her job, with termination looming. Under federal investigation, facing possible $10,000 fines. Target of a $100,000 civil lawsuit. Her reputation ruined, her influence gone. And it all began because she let prejudice guide her decisions and refused to see the people around her as equals. The last time I saw her was at the local grocery store the following week. She was at the self-checkout, visibly flustered, trying to keep her head down. When she spotted me, her face flushed red. She abandoned her half-scanned groceries and rushed out. I watched from the window as she stood by her car, keys shaking in her hands. She looked around like a stranger in her own town, finally realizing that her reign was not only over, but would be remembered not with respect, but as a warning. Prejudice had met power and karma came to collect with interest.